Hello everyone, my name is Gus and this is Dive Talk Plus. Today I have a topic that I want to talk about because I see a lot of ramblings in the community and people are asking me to provide my thoughts on that. Now I try to stay away from things as they're happening just because we don't have all the information, especially when it comes to incidents where there was a fatality or somebody got hurt or bent or whatever it is. We tend to let's just wait and see. Let's wait for more details. Let's if there's litigation pending, let's wait until that happens because the whole idea of just jumping in and being the first ones to talk about it just for clicks has never really sat well with me. But this is one of those things where I'm not really sure if waiting for more things to come out will add any value. I feel that if anything, it may take away from my own thoughts on this specific topic. So I wanted to talk about it. And again, Woody's not here. This is not scripted. Nobody's paying me or endorsing me or whatever. So if I talk, well about a company or bad about another one, I have no vendetta against anybody and nobody's paying me to talk well about them. This is 100% my opinion, in my opinion only. And I haven't done one of these videos in a while. So I wanted to talk about this controversy over some of the issues that Henry, one of our dear friends of Dive Talk and a Dive Talk Go instructor, has had in the past as he pushes for these super amazing, totally jealous about this, by the way, deep dives and exploration dives that he's doing. Like the guy's following like submarines down deep. So he's really doing these dives that, I don't know, a handful of people in the world are doing. Super deep dives. And Henry, in his quest for diving deep, which he's passionate about, has been testing equipment, rebreathers, and other things along the way. And in a lot of ways, people like Henry are there to benefit the rest of us, the rest of divers who are not interested or are unable or don't have enough knowledge and experience to dive to those depths. I don't want to say rely on people like Henry, but we benefit tremendously from people like Henry who are willing to take equipment and gear to depths, to caves, to things that, wrecks and things like that most of us are not able to go to or are not interested in going to. How many of you are interested in diving down to 200 meters? Right, realistically. Sounds cool, but do you really want to just sit there for 12 hours in cold water doing deco just to go to 200 meters? I don't know. Like, I feel like in a lot of our heads, when we hear dives like that, we immediately go into like, yeah, I want to do that, or I wish I was doing that. And then when you learn all the logistics and the pain involved with it, we kind of like, you know what? Maybe not. So anyway, Henry has been testing and diving multiple rebreather units. I don't know how many he's certified to. If I had to guess, I would say probably around 8 different rebreathers, maybe 10. I know that he's an instructor in a couple of them as well. And he's been, again, diving different units, different configurations, doing dual rebreather dives and, just really pushing the boundaries of what some of these units may do. And recently in one of his dives, he did a super deep dive, I think in Egypt, to over 150 meters. And he took 2 rebreather units. It was a dual rebreather configuration. And one of the rebreathers, the Halcyon Symbios rebreather, had some issues at depth. And he kind of reached out to me and told me about the issues. And then, he's been in conversations with Halcyon and other people. And I believe that perhaps there will be other videos from other channels that will come out on this. And I decided to record this video because I want to talk about kind of my opinion on what is the responsibility of manufacturers when it comes to warning people about limitations on equipment and what is appropriate in terms of expectations when it comes to a piece of equipment that you dive. Personally, I'm not sure if I am in agreement with Henry and others who are aware of this issue and kind of have made their own decisions on how they feel about it. Personally, I don't think that is the manufacturer's responsibility to warn you to take things beyond what they're rated for. I mean, I think that there's a rating system in place for a reason. And that reason is, and this is not true, by the way, for all manufacturers. But the reason is there's a lab and we put our units, including the Dive Talk Go. By the way, shout out to David from Ghost Divers. I was just wearing the t-shirt today and I didn't want to change. So David, shout out Ghost Divers. Anyway, I digress. Back to the conversation. I don't think that manufacturers who test things in a lab are responsible from pushing their units to the breaking point just so they can say, oh, by the way, my unit broke under these certain conditions. The main reason for that is that when manufacturers test rebreathers, for the most part, they push the units to a level that it's unrealistic for a human to be able to go to. We use machines for that, right? Imagine if we place, I'm just going to talk about the Dive Talk Go in this case. Imagine if we place a Go and hook it up to a machine that will be diving down to, let's say, 30 meters or 100 feet and breathing a hypercapnic level. So like, imagine you're gasping for air for 2 hours straight. What human can do that? Just stay at 100 feet for 2 hours straight, like breathing like that. It's impossible. You may be able to do it for 30 seconds. You may be able to do it for a minute. I don't know. But 2 hours? But we want to test what the unit can do. So we hook it up to a machine to do that. Now, if the unit performs great, let's say for 3 hours, I feel comfortable saying that the unit is certified to 2.5 hours. Why? Because at a superhuman level of breathing, it was able to go past beyond 2.5 hours. But it's not my responsibility to test that thing to see that, oh, at the 10-hour mark, or I'm just making something up because I don't know, at the 6-hour, 7 hours, 5 hour, 10 hour, who cares? Mark, actually at that point, the rebreather imploded. No. Like, what? No. This is not true in any industry, by the way, as far as I know. Like, I work with Microsoft stuff. I've worked for Microsoft and as a Microsoft partner for many, many years. There are things like minimum requirements. There are things like compatible browsers, for example. If you're using a web application, Microsoft will say the compatible browser for Google Chrome is Google Chrome version whatever. Sometimes they don't even say what version it is. They just say the latest version is the only compatible version. Why? Because that's what they test. Does that mean that that web application you developed will not work on a 2-year-old Google Chrome? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that they will not support it if you push it further than their minimum requirements. The same is true with anything. Like I was just thinking about it like tires, let's just say. And I pull up, I'm showing my screen right here, for example. When I had a truck, I had a Ford Raptor years ago. These are the tires that I use. The BF Goodrich all-terrain KO2s. Not the best tire, not proud of it, but these are the ones that came out of the factory. And the tires on the tire itself had a letter that talked about the rating on the tire. So I actually pulled the manual for the tire, and mine had, I think, a T rating, had a T letter in there. So I'm going to scroll down because there's a table here. And you can see that based on the symbol, mine were T, my tires were certified to 118 miles an hour or 190 kilometers an hour. It's not the responsibility of the tire maker to tell us that exactly at 202 kilometers an hour or 100 and whatever miles an hour, the tire exploded. Why? Because not all tires are exactly the same. Some tires may explode way below 118 miles an hour because there's a defect in the manufacturing. There's a bubble of air that got embedded into the whatever. Things fail. Brand new Ferraris break. Newborn babies die. Like, there are things that fail no matter what you do. So to say that manufacturers have to disclose that there's a hard limit, you cannot do X. Like, no, I completely disagree with that. I think that you, as a technical diver, understand the ratings and understand that the rating is based on a testing that the manufacturer did, and they feel comfortable with that. Typically, manufacturers will push, let's say, 20% beyond those limits and dial it back, meaning I test a unit to 120 meters and I certify it to 100. Why? Because you don't want people to feel like, oh, if I go to 101 meters or 102 meters, my unit is going to stop working or implode or break or whatever. You want to push it a little bit further and then dial it back. Be conservative. We did that with a Go, and I assume every manufacturer of rebreathers and other things will do the same. They test to a certain level, let's say 120 meters in this case. I don't know this for sure. I'm just going to say 120 meters, and then they dial it back. Could the unit break at 125 if they tested it? Maybe. Maybe it goes to 150, maybe 200, maybe 300. Who knows? But it's not my job to break one of my units to see what was the breaking point so I can advertise that. I just completely disagree with that. And if you disagree with my take on that, leave a comment below. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts on that. Is it up to the manufacturer to break a unit so they can say, by the way, this unit is rated to 100 meters, but ours broke at 161? And if so, if they post that information, will you trust it? Will you trust your unit, that your unit will be identical to the one that broke at 161? Or will you be cautious that, well, maybe mine wasn't that good, or maybe mine was better? That was an early unit, one of the early production ones, and they have, fixed the kinks, and now the units will do. No, like, it's just, what? Absolutely not. I don't think it is the manufacturer's responsibility to tell you what not to do. They tell you what things are rated for. This happens with iPhones. They have ratings, scuba diving masks, literally every thing that I can think of comes with a rating from the factory. The factory is not telling you, do not, if you go 119 miles an hour in this tire, it will explode. No, they will not say that. They just said, we tested it, probably in this tire, I assume, to 130 miles an hour, and then they dial it back to 118 or 140. I don't know what they tested it for, but I assume it wasn't to 118, and then they rated to 118. I find that hard to believe. Now, I did some digging, and publicly I found the Halcyon Symbio's rebreather manual. And when you look at the manual, and I'm sharing here the screen so you can see. So if we go to depth limits in the manual, you can see that it says the Symbio's chest-mounted rebreather has been tested and certified in accordance to EN 14143 2013 to a maximum operating depth of 100 meters. I mean, that to me is clear that they're telling you this is the most you should take the unit to. You may disagree. If you disagree, please leave a comment below. I want to talk about this. This is Dive Talk. Comment below. And it says when you're using it with air, you shouldn't go beyond 40 meters, 130 feet. That's smart. When you're using trimix, depending on your diluent and the amount of helium in your mix, you can go down to 100 meters. And then they double down in the warning. Exceeding these limits voids the CE compliance and may result in serious injury or death. How does it result in serious injury or death? That's up to you to decide how, but I would say that the rebreather possibly failing beyond those depths is an option. I would say that with the Go too. This is not a hit on Halcyon. Halcyon makes quality gear. Again, I'm not sponsored by Halcyon. I'm not a Halcyon ambassador. I have no dog in this fight. If you dive the Dive Talk Go, which is certified to 60 meters, just the Go Plus with the extension ring, certified to 100 meters. If you go beyond 100 meters, I'm going to read it verbatim. Exceeding 100 meters with the Go Plus or 60 meters with the Go may result in serious injury or death. I am telling you the exact same warning that Halcyon provided with the Symbios rebreather. And I assume every other manufacturer provides a very similar, if not the same, verbatim warning. And this is not just so it's a legal thing. This is not just so like lawyers are happy. This is because these units have not been tested in a lab beyond that. So to say that you should definitely feel comfortable going beyond those limits just because other units in the market have been taken to those limits, it's irresponsible. And I don't know if it's criminal, but it's really bad. If any manufacturer would tell their customers, by the way, I know that the rating is that, but don't worry about it. That was just lawyers. You can go way beyond that. There are companies out there, by the way, and I'm not going to name any names, but if you guys do some digging, you can find them, who, number one, have never tested their units in a lab because they tested on the field because that is real world testing. Meaning somebody makes a rebreather in a garage somewhere, they put it on themselves, they dive it for 10 hours, and then they start selling it because, hey, we tested it in the real world. No, that's not real testing. If you're an expert rebreather, diving a unit even for 100 hours, 200 hours, it doesn't matter what it is, doesn't make it realistic because not everyone breathes like you, not everyone dives like you, not everyone dives in the same water as you. You have to test this thing in a lab where your unit is pushed to its limits beyond what any human may be able to do. And then you can certify it. Then you can rate it. But these companies that have never done any testing in their units in a lab, not only certify the units, I don't even know how. I guess it's on a hunch. They just it's rated to whatever. They just say it without any evidence. But also, they claim, by the way, that's just the rating on the paper. We know of people that have done 15-hour dives to 15,000 feet with this thing. Bro, that is so irresponsible. And I cannot believe these companies are still in business and are still having customers buy their gear. Whatever. Have at it. And the funny thing is that some of these divers criticize legit companies like Halcyon and Dive Right and Liberty. I'm just naming all these other companies who do actual testing in their units. It's not just Dive Talk gear. It's not just Halcyon. There's several other companies that do the right thing and test their gear to see their capabilities. And they rate it to a certain rating. Now, I think that the argument is, well, some other companies rate their gear to a certain level, but we know that there are divers out there that have taken it way deeper or dive it for way longer. And when I mean way longer is because there's rating also on the sorb, like how much diving, how long of a dive you can do with the sorb in the unit. And we rate that in minutes. One example is the Go. Not the Go Plus with the extension, but the Go is rated for 150 minutes, so 2.5 hours. Why? Because we tested it past that and we feel comfortable dialing it back to 150. Okay? So we know that people can dive way longer than that on the units. They have done it before, but it will be irresponsible for us to tell people you can go beyond that when it comes to the length of the dives. There's a rating for a reason. It was tested to that. We have no idea if you can do a 7-hour dive, 8-hour dive, 9-hour, 10-hour, 20-hour. Who knows? But it's not our job to tell people, by the way, if you dive 7 hours and 3 minutes, the unit will stop working. No. No. That's just to say that because there are other units in the market that can do a 200-meter dive, and you've seen people do a 200-meter dive on this unit or that unit or whatever, I would expect that the Halcyon or the Dive Talk Go or what this other unit should do it because it's a competitor. No. And by the way, even if that was the case, I believe that there is this misconception in the market that you should always aim for the deepest, biggest, whatever, that you can buy. No, I think in my opinion, when it comes to buying a rebreather or a regulator or a BCD or whatever, you should buy something that matches your mission profile. What is the dives that you do the most? I'll give you an example. If you are a diver who only dives when you travel, let's say you go on cruises, you go on vacations, you fly twice a year to Bonaire, whatever. If you're a diver that typically flies places to go dive, buy a BCD that's good for travel. Like, I'm sure that if you buy the most expensive X Deep BCD or the most expensive Scuba Pro or the most expensive whatever BCD, they will be better than the best travel BCD. Why? Because travel BCDs prioritize size and lightweight, things that are important when you travel, than those who don't have to worry about that. They just want to focus on features. Although there are some BCDs that are really good at being compact, or they're a good combination of being compact and having features that you desire on a full, blown BCD. The point is, you have to think about what types of dives do I do the most and buy gear that matches that mission profile. Rebreathers are great at this. Number one, because there is no rebreather. I don't care who you are. There is no rebreather that is good at everything. Okay? There are rebreathers that are great in tight spaces like caves and wrecks. There are rebreathers that are great at deep diving, cold water. Like, depending on what you're doing, one rebreather will be really good at that and really bad at others. One good example is rebreathers that are large, that will allow you to do 15-hour dives and things like that, are really bad at fitting through tight spaces. Why? Because you need the size. You need small. You need it to be side mount, whatever. And those rebreathers, because of the fact that you're dealing with a tight space, will not be able to have the temperature, capabilities to deal with cold water, the length of the dive, etc. You won't be able to fit all these features in one unit. It's impossible. There's no single rebreather that is good at everything. That doesn't exist. So what you need to do is think about what are the kinds of dives that I do and find a unit that matches those kinds of dives. There will always be one-offs, right? But I don't want you to go and think about, like, I'm going to buy this rebreather because that rebreather goes to 200 meters. Well, how often do you go to 200 meters? If this is something you do all the time, then go buy the 200-meter rebreather. If this is not, then why buy it? It doesn't make any sense. The Go is a good example. The Go is a great rebreather for people who do dives that are 2.5 hours long, that are not through tight spaces because it's chest mounted, that are not looking for automatic dill adding and oxygen adding. It's not an electronic rebreather. It's a mechanical rebreather with a constant mass flow. So it is designed for those kinds of dives. You're in the ocean for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You're taking pictures, enjoying your dive, not doing some super tight cave exploration or whatever. Will the rebreather work in a cave? Sure. But it's not made for that. That's not what it's good at, right? It has its mission profile. And there are some other units that are great at other things. And I think you should consider what your mission profile is and buy the best unit for you. Again, going back, and I feel like I went on a giant tangent here about diving beyond the limits of a unit. It doesn't mean that the unit will stop working as soon as you pass those limits. As I said, manufacturers will set ratings on units based on the testing they've done. Not all of them, as I mentioned, some of them never tested it, but the manufacturers that do test it, and they do it properly, will set ratings on it. I know the Halcyon Symbios is a super high quality unit that has been thoroughly tested. You know how I know that? Because I went to the place where they tested it. And you know when I went? When I was in Europe and I took the Go and tested it in the same exact lab that they tested the Symbios. And I was thoroughly impressed. Mind blown, maybe something that I use in this case. Amazing facilities in Austria. And I got to see with my own eyes how they make the rebreathers, and the computers. The Symbios handsets and HUDs, heads-up displays, top notch. I am jealous. I wish we had the same labs and facilities that these guys have access to, because it was top notch. I would have zero concerns buying and diving a Halcyon rebreather. Again, not paid by them. If anything, you could argue that they are a competitor because they sell a chest-mounted rebreather. But I believe that just because we have a product in the market, a chest-mounted rebreather in the market, doesn't give us the license to just say that all other rebreathers suck and that they're terrible and that you shouldn't look at it. No, I think that other units have a place in the market and that their place should match your mission profile. That's it. Choptima, the chest-mounted Optima from Dive Right, it's a great unit. If it matches your mission profile, you should buy a chest-mounted Optima. No problem. So this notion that because we have a great product, that means that every other product sucks, it's dumb. It's stupid. We don't need that in the industry. I think that, we all focus on creating quality products and that people should make a decision based on their mission profile. Again, manufacturers will put out the ratings. They also will put out recommendations on their units, which are not based on ratings. They are based on things that they did when they tested the units, for example. I'll give you one that perhaps you didn't know, and this is an interesting one. I'm going to preface this by saying this is not an attack on Liberty. Liberty as a company, they make great products. We have friends at Liberty, great technology. I have nothing against Liberty. I'm just using them as an example. I'm sure there are others in the industry. I'm sure you guys have seen the Liberty CCR side mount. You've seen it perhaps because I have featured the Sidekick, which is a side mount rebreather very similar to the Liberty side mount, which is no longer available for sale. KISS doesn't make it anymore or sell it anymore. I happen to have the last one they ever made. Mike Young made for us, and we have it in the van, and I dive it. It's the Sidekick Lunar configuration. I did a video on this where I flooded the unit and proved that even after a full flood, catastrophic failure, I was able to recover and get back on the unit. And it was a great video, and I'll leave a link up here in case you haven't seen it. But anyway, back to the Liberty side mount. Great unit. A lot of people dive it. Very respected divers dive it. Ed Sorensen, for example, dives Liberty once in a while. He typically dives the Sidewinder, but he also has a Liberty, and he's an instructor on the unit. So very high quality one. If you go to the Liberty side mount user manual, which I have on the screen right here so you guys can see it, if you scroll down to how the unit is supposed to be worn, and you have all the information about the cylinders and all of that stuff, you can see that the way the manufacturer tells divers how to wear the unit is, let's get to it, on your chest. Do you know that? That the Liberty side mount is meant to be worn on your chest? And I'm reading directly from the manual, in case you're not paying attention to the screen and seeing what's on the screen. It says, in bold letters, correct positioning of the units on the diver's body is essential to maintaining the breathing characteristics of the unit, which meets the requirements of EN 14143 2013, the same standards that we saw with the Halcyon Symbios rebreather. If the position of the apparatus is different from that specified, which is on the picture, the manufacturer does not guarantee the breathing characteristics specified in the quoted standard. Now watch this. The apparatus must be done so that the position below the diver during the dive, so below on the chest, not on the side, below, okay? The counterlung must be positioned on the diver's chest, and the unit must be diagonally offset, approximately 25 degrees, to the longitudinal, I don't know how to say that word, longitudinal axis of the diver's body, in other words, diagonal, to allow full swimming and lower limb movement. You can see it in pictures. You can see it written in text, the Liberty side mount rebreather was tested and approved and rated as a chest mounted rebreather. How do people use it? If you go to their actual website, you can see in their actual pictures our friend Joe Busquets diving at side mount, not chest mount. The name of the unit is the Liberty side mount. People will dive at side mount. Joe Busquets, great instructor, amazing diver, by the way. This guy is a better diver than I'll ever be. Amazing diver, side mount. Jill Heinerth. Everybody knows Jill Heinerth, Hall of Famer, explorer. There's the picture of Jill diving the side mount Liberty. Side mount, not chest mount. So the manufacturers will put out a recommendation and a rating based on the testing they've done in a lab. And it is up to the diver to take responsibility for what they're willing to do past those ratings and recommendation. I would assume that if I ever had the opportunity to dive the Liberty side mount rebreather, I would also dive at side mount, not chest mounted. Okay? And I'm taking the responsibility on that. So I think that when it comes to the Halcyon Symbios, and I don't know what other channels are going to be recording about this. I know that it's being analyzed by others who are rebreather divers, who are explorers, etc. They may come out and say, if you're a serious explorer, you should not get a Halcyon Symbios. I think that is wrong. I think that recommendation is either designed to gather exposure and clicks. You know, you just want the clout that a manufacturer like Halcyon or others will give you. But I believe, it's my opinion, that you should follow your mission profile and buy the unit that makes the most sense to you and your budget. If you have enough in your budget that allows you to buy multiple units, the way, for example, I use a sidewinder for cave exploration in caves that are tight, but also a go when I dive in the ocean. And also I could use the sidekick if I need to, remove things because it's going to be super tight and I need to go no mount in some cases. It's good to have options based on your mission. That's why it's called a mission profile. And I think that there's a lot of information out there and reviews on YouTube and information on manufacturers' website. One of my favorites is actually the guide the In-Depth magazine does every year called the Rebreather Guide. And the reason why I like that is because you see all the rebreathers in one place with information provided by the manufacturers. This is not them just writing and arbitrarily saying this rebreather can go to 1,000 feet and do 1,000 minutes. No, this is every manufacturer reports what they rate the units to. You will also see that some units don't have any rating. Why? Because they haven't been tested. Simple as that. I personally, if there's a recommendation I would make, I personally would say I would stay away from units that you can't really trust the results because they've never been tested in a lab. And for me, I would be the one to say, I would love to say that the Go is rated to 1,000 minutes and 1,000 feet. I would love to say that. But I can't say that because we put it through the test. And we tested it to certain depths and certain length. And that's what we're comfortable with. And all these other companies have done the same with their units, tested them, and then make recommendations and rated their units based on the results that they got on the lab or at the lab. So the Rebreather Guide is great for that. You can always corroborate that information separately. Take the information from the Rebreather Guide. I'll leave the link down below for the latest Rebreather Guide from In-Depth magazine. And you can go and corroborate that information with the manufacturer. You can read reviews on your own, etc. There are other factors too. I don't want to make this episode about what should you do if you're trying to buy a rebreather. Maybe that is a separate episode if you want to hear that. I think that there are other factors that play a big role beyond the mission profile, but I think the mission profile is your starting point. If you're a cave diver and you dive in tight caves, then you should start looking at rebreathers that don't look like you're wearing a refrigerator on your back. Why? Because those rebreathers are terrible at squeezing through tight things. They're amazing rebreathers in other things, terrible at squeezing through things. So start with a mission profile, and then from there you can branch out into other factors that can kind of lead you in the right direction. I personally believe that when it comes to buying scuba equipment like rebreathers and other things, computers, regulators, BCDs, etc., you should make decisions based on fact and actual information rather than a hunch, rather than what someone says, rather than even a YouTube channel telling you what they think about it. You do your own research and make a decision based on data. That's it. If you want to make an accurate decision, you need accurate data. So that's kind of how I see it. There are people out there that are amazing at innovation and creating equipment. I will say that the people behind the Symbios line of equipment, like the rebreather, like the computers, are geniuses. They're amazing. I had the opportunity to meet Arne Sieber, who is their I don't know what his official title is, but he's the brain behind Symbios, and Arne has created other equipment in the past for other companies. This may be a guy that we should feature on the show. Just do a whole episode about Arne, because he is really amazing at what he does. He's a genius, and I would have zero concerns diving a Halcyon Symbios rebreather. No concerns. So shout out to Halcyon and Arne and Jared, who's the CEO of Halcyon. I have nothing but respect. I wish them the best with the Symbios going forward. So there are people out there that are amazing like Arne. There are people out there that are amazing like Mike Young. And actually that reminded me of an interview Woody did recently with Mike. And I'm going to leave it right here so you guys can go and check it out. If you love my take on rebreathers, I'm just an idiot rebreather diver. Mike is a genius. Go check out the interview that Woody knocked out of the park with Mike right here. And we'll see you on the next one.